In today's world, billionaires build tech companies, dominate headlines, and shape culture. But long before Silicon Valley, before Wall Street became a global symbol of finance, there was one family that quietly built a system so powerful, its influence can still be felt today. Not just in oil, not just in banking, but in politics, education, global policy, and power itself. This is the story of the Rockefeller dynasty, a story of discipline, ambition, controversy, and control. John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839 into a modest family. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, was a traveling salesman with a reputation for deception and risky schemes. He often lived under aliases, moving from place to place, leaving behind uncertainty. His mother, Eliza Davison Rockefeller, was the opposite. Deeply religious, disciplined, and committed to stability. From her, he learned control. From his father,
you have no right
perhaps
to be here!
I've every right!
he learned
Now!
the dangers of
Now!
chaos.
Not until you listen!
From a very young age, Rockefeller kept records of everything. Every cent earned, every cent spent. He loaned
Thanks, I
small
really
amounts
need
of money
this.
to neighbors,
Anytime.
charging
Pay me
interest.
back when you can. I will.
He raised
You're a real pal.
turkeys, sold produce, and tracked profits carefully. While other children played, he was already building the mindset of a man who would one day dominate an entire industry. He didn't just want money, he wanted order. And more importantly, he wanted predictability in an unpredictable world. When the American Civil War began, the nation was divided, but markets were booming. Rockefeller entered the commodities business, trading goods like grain, meat, and supplies. He formed partnerships, including one with Maurice Clark.
Gentlemen, the terms are final. Sign now or the deal is void.
Agreed. Here are the notes.
Good. Let's proceed.
And built a commission business that supplied the Union Army. War created urgency. Urgency created demand. And Rockefeller thrived in that chaos. He wasn't on the battlefield, but he understood something just as powerful. The real winners of war are often those who control supply. By the end of the war, he had built capital, connections, and confidence. But his biggest move was still ahead. In the 1860s, oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. Suddenly, everyone rushed in. Men drilled wells overnight, hoping to strike it rich. Prices fluctuated wildly. Boom and bust cycles destroyed fortunes as quickly as they created them. But Rockefeller saw what others didn't. Drilling oil was risky, unpredictable, chaotic. But refining oil, turning it into kerosene, that was stable, scalable, and controllable. Kerosene was in high demand, used for lighting homes across America and Europe. So instead of chasing oil, he built a system to control it. He invested in refineries in Cleveland, a strategic location with access to railroads and waterways. Efficiency became his obsession. He reduced waste, improved processes, and reinvested profits aggressively. In 1870, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil. What followed was one of the most aggressive expansions in business history. He negotiated secret deals with railroads, securing lower shipping rates than competitors. These arrangements, often called rebates, gave him a massive advantage. He undercut competitors, he bought out rivals, or crushed them. Some refiners accepted buyouts and joined Standard Oil. Others resisted and were driven out of business. This strategy became known as consolidation, but critics called it something else, a monopoly. At its peak, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of US oil refining. Rockefeller didn't just succeed in the market, he became the market. And with that dominance came enormous wealth and growing suspicion. But power attracts attention and eventually resistance. Ida Tarbell, a determined journalist, began investigating Standard Oil. Her father had once been an independent oil producer affected by Rockefeller's rise. She spent years gathering documents, interviews, and evidence. What she uncovered shocked the nation. Secret deals, unfair practices, corporate manipulation on a massive scale. Her reports, published in McClure's magazine, reached a wide audience. They exposed how Standard Oil operated behind closed doors. Her reports weren't just articles, they were weapons. Public opinion turned against Rockefeller, and the US government began to act. In 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil must be broken up under antitrust laws.
Standard Oil must be broken up under antitrust laws.
It was a historic decision. The empire was divided into more than 30 separate companies. Among them were future giants like Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. To many, it looked like defeat. But Rockefeller still owned large shares in each piece. And as those companies grew, so did his wealth. He became the first billionaire in modern history, not in spite of the breakup, but because of it. John D. Rockefeller Jr. inherited the fortune, but he also inherited the criticism. The Rockefeller name was powerful, but controversial, and soon that controversy would explode. In 1914, striking coal miners in Colorado clashed with company forces. The miners were protesting working conditions, wages, and lack of union recognition. The result was tragic. Violence broke out between the Colorado National Guard and striking workers. The event became known as the Ludlow Massacre. Women and children were among the dead, and the Rockefeller name was blamed due to ownership ties to the mining company. Public outrage reached new heights. This wasn't just a business problem anymore, it was a reputation crisis. Rockefeller Jr. realized something critical. Power alone wasn't enough. You needed public trust. So he began reshaping the family image. He met directly with workers. He improved labor conditions. He engaged openly with the media.
And so, my friends, we must continue to build a better future for all our workers.
He hired advisors, including pioneers of communication strategy, spoke to the press, engaged with the public. This marked the rise of modern public relations. And at the same time, he invested in massive projects like Rockefeller Center, transforming both the skyline and the family's reputation. The Rockefellers began shifting their focus from profit to philanthropy. They funded universities such as the University of Chicago, medical research institutions, public health campaigns, including efforts to combat diseases like hookworm. But this wasn't just generosity, it was influence on a global scale. The next generation expanded even further. Nelson Rockefeller rose to political power, serving as governor of New York and later vice president of the United States. David Rockefeller dominated global banking through Chase Manhattan Bank. He built relationships with world leaders, expanding financial influence across continents. Through finance and diplomacy, the family extended its reach beyond America. Into the world. Working alongside figures like Henry Kissinger, they helped shape discussions on global policy, economics, and international relations. By now, the Rockefeller name was no longer tied to oil. It was tied to power itself. Today, the Rockefeller empire looks very different. No single company, no visible monopoly. Instead, a network of trusts, investments, institutions. Their wealth is quieter now, less visible, but still deeply embedded in the systems that shape the modern world. The Rockefeller story is not just about one man or one company. It's about how power evolves, from control of resources to control of systems to control of influence itself, and how a single family helped design the blueprint for modern wealth. But even as the Rockefeller name became less visible in headlines, their influence did not disappear. Instead, it evolved. Behind the scenes, the family developed structured wealth systems designed for longevity. Trusts, foundations, and diversified investments ensured that wealth would not only survive, but grow. This allowed the Rockefeller fortune to endure economic downturns, global conflicts, and shifting markets. While many fortunes disappear within generations, the Rockefellers built continuity. And with continuity came quiet power. At the same time, their philanthropic reach continued to expand. Through organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation, they played key roles in shaping global health initiatives, education systems, and scientific research. Their funding helped support breakthroughs in medicine, including public health systems that still exist today. But with influence comes scrutiny. Critics argued that such large-scale philanthropy also allowed wealthy families to shape global priorities. Supporters saw them as pioneers of giving. This dual perception has followed the family for decades. As the decades passed, the financial world itself began to change. Oil was no longer the single dominant force it once was. New industries emerged. Technology, finance, and global markets reshaped wealth creation. And once again, the Rockefeller strategy adapted. Instead of dominating one industry, their influence diversified, making it less visible but more resilient. In modern times, the Rockefeller name represents legacy, institutions, buildings, foundations. Yet behind those symbols remains a deeper reality. The systems they helped build still exist. And perhaps that is their greatest legacy. Not just the money they made, but the model they created. Today, in a world driven by visibility, where success is often measured by attention, the Rockefeller approach feels almost invisible. Because true power doesn't always need to be seen. Sometimes it's built to last. And as history continues to unfold, one question remains. How many of the systems shaping our modern world today can be traced back to the quiet empire built by one man who simply wanted control? And now that you've seen the full story, from a disciplined boy with a ledger to the architect of one of the most powerful financial dynasties in history, ask yourself this. Was John D. Rockefeller simply a businessman, or was he something more?